year. I mean, to be part of this celebration. And just really first about me. I mean, I'm not going to talk about me and the Sphinx. I mean, I think I actually came to the CMU in 1986, and I think it's a couple of things which people might not know. I'm a kid born and grew up in Taipei, Taiwan, and then my first flight out of the island, and also my first trip, of course, it's my first trip outside the island is come to CMU, which happened to be the best decision I ever made. And also thanks to DARPA, I think I as a foreign student come over here, and I think I understand CMU had, you guys know CMU has a very generous PhD scholarship program, and then but I think I believe all this, Raj certainly know, it's all funded by all 6 years PhD, all funded by DARPA. I think and then really I come to CMU trying to study AI. I mean, I think all the pioneers before me, Hearsay to Harpy, Dragon, and then read the handbook of AI and all I mean the diagram you guys showed this morning is all familiar. I come here to learn AI, and then of course I want to study CS, and that's really become my career. I mean, it's not just CMU until today, still working on this. And then so I mean and Sphinx. I think I know many people know Sphinx, and I think I really be honored to be part of this great team from the very beginning. And we start as 3 people: Roger, Kai-Fu, and me. And I think Kai-Fu and I started this, and then we divided time. He do the training, I do the decoder, and I mean the rest is history. And become successful later on, the team become bigger and bigger. I mean, thanks to all my colleagues, and then it's always a team effort, and has been really as a system demonstrate. The first time, large vocabulary, speaker independent, continuous HMN-based system, thanks to Jun and Jen. And I think I come to CMU, particularly with the heavy influence of Kai-Fu convinced, I mean, really believe this data-driven statistical approach. And I think this core definitely comes from speech guide, and then nothing can be so true today. There's no data like more data, and you want a bigger one, right? I mean, I think and I think I'm an engineering student, and then I think it's really a pattern recognition. I would say that if you look at AI, even until today, okay, I think the biggest achievement is we start with HMN. Today is deep learning. Really, we find the best way to do pattern recognition, and then pattern recognition, even though it's not the whole thing for AI, but it's a big part of human intelligence. And then we see how this the computer can do, right? And then also HMN. I mean, Roger also mentioned, I think dynamic programming. How do you deal with the time series, the data? So until today, even you have DNA, you always need the structure of hidden Markov, the similar one, or dynamic even a simple one, to really deal with time series data. And I think and also the Angry language model comes from speech guide, right? And I think and today this large foundation model, forward, backward. I remember when in really when the speech in those days, what we actually spent a lot of time trying to figure out how much data we have, and then how complicated the model can be. And today, even as today, still, I mean, when people talk about GPT-3, GPT-4, Google, Microsoft has this bird and the gopher, whatever the model. I mean, those still really trying to really make a trade-off. Even though today we have unlimited data, so we can build huge trillions, or very soon the billion. Soon the trillion model parameters. So I think those still stick today. Even you think about the so-called large foundation model, large language model. If you think about the embedding, I mean, in the early days, we call them co-occurrence. I think whether you bound it by the forward, backward, or the whole thing, and this model right now because the computation and the data allow us to explore all spectrum, right? And also my sort of part of my main contribution of my thesis on the CART, classification regression tree, is really at that time, I think the first attempt to combine the expert-based system, symbolic reasoning, and the statistical data-driven stuff. Well, today, I mean, why we're going forward, it's very hard. People still explore, and I think certainly I expect more of such work going into the future. And after Sphinx and CMU, which I think is also a genius of the Raj. Immediately after the Sphinx success, he did a consortium, and then basically it's a Sphinx open source. And today we know how important open source for the entire science and engineering field. And I think this also enabled a commercial development in the mainstream companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, everyone. Right? And I think and then I also fortunately to join early the Kai-Fu's group in Apple, then later on Xue-Dong's group in Microsoft, and until today I still work for Microsoft. And then this data-driven stuff really compared to today, at that time, we think it's big data, it's actually small data. And today we have unlimited data, right? And I think and also, we also need to give credit to really, to make this happen, the two very unsung heroes, data and computation, right? People who build hardware system, chips, right? System. And then my own career, which I think is highly influenced by the speech work, and also because people really, dictation is important, don't get me wrong. I think particularly for input, all this stuff, hands-free. But really people want is really do what I mean, do what I say, right? So we do spoken language understanding. And also in the early 2000s, I think when the search coming up, I and a bunch of people in Microsoft, of course, the Google did it even earlier than anyone else. The search also is a founder of this understanding, because understand your query, right? Today we also do speech query. And then the way the search interface, they present the best to you, right? And you click and you have a dialogue. So this actually also expand my career. Later I also managed the big research effort for Microsoft Research, particularly in Beijing lab. And then, the DNN, AI, now foundation model, and people talking about AGI. If you think about this journey, I feel tremendous honor and proud, right? I mean, I think the speech actually started this fire and then go all the way to actually do this today. I mean, look at this, I view this expanded influence of the speech. And then in terms of product, we first do this API, SDK, and dictation. We also do SOU, server, and translation, search, then this like a Siri, Cortana like stuff. Now the model. It's really unbelievable. And I think not only we use today as a mainstream product, going forward, people just need more of those. And then this, my last slide really show, I want to show really things I learned from Raj and the CMU speech at the CMU and the EDU. Today we are celebrating really the best, most influential speech group started by Raj 50 years ago. And Raj also, the CMU and also Raj group, always system-oriented. I mean, I think that anything you talk about, this morning we talk about this early speech work, everything is a system. And then, so really appreciate this system. And also, I say, early on I actually did the decoder for Sphinx. But only until I worked with Roberto on the bin, I realized, real time, and then you need hardware and the software to really make it really work in the real world. And I think that discipline really stick with me. This is why I joined the industrial lab. And I think, and then the more I work in this area, I just appreciate how this system-oriented work. And in this system, today it's very obvious, right? But in the early day, really Raj teach me how important to scale up, right? And you always want the better and faster and the more accurate system, right? Error rate, right? Error rate reduction, that's the scale up. And also scale out in order to really serve the million, billions, the people, the scale out thing. And I think always look at the big picture. And then that's also why the Sphinx Consortium had, and I know not many people talk about today, but really without speech consortium, I would say the industry will certainly will not develop that fast. And that's also another example of scale up and the scale out. And I think why we can do this, surrounding yourself with smart people. We always a teamwork, and I think I'm so grateful. I think even after I graduate, I think my CMU connection, like many people here, I mean, help me help my team in the the career development. And finally, I think this error rate reduction and also increase the complexity of the task, really the belief of continuous improving. Tomorrow will be better. And I think the next 50 years, I'm sure will be the same. Tomorrow will be better. Thank you.